Hey y'all, I am here sitting with Nevada State Senate candidate Dallas Harris in Las Vegas, and we are, if you can believe it, 12 days out from the 2024 U.S. election, and you have served in the Nevada State Senate since 2018, and you are now running again. So my first question to you is, how are you feeling about everything?
I feel great. Getting out, doing the thing, knocking doors, talking to people, that's a great experience. And it's something that I've had the opportunity to do a lot over these last few months running up to this election. We've got, I've always said, a great message. And when people hear what it is we want to do when it comes to cutting prescription costs, lowering the cost of housing, protecting reproductive rights, we're on the right side of those issues. And so we just got to get that message out. That's what we've been doing. That's what we got to do for the next 12 days. And we make sure we run through the tape. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, yeah. It always feels good to be like on the right side and know that you're really moving with your own values at hand. And you and I met in San Francisco a few weeks ago, or not weeks, months ago, at a fundraising event. And one of the things I really love about you and your candidacy is that you were born and raised in Las Vegas. You went on to law school, you could have done anything in the world, and you chose to stay here in your own community and give back. Why did you choose elected office, and why are you running again?
Well, I think there are a lot of forms of public service, all of which are noble in their own ways, right? Some people choose to go to the military. Some people work in local government, right? Which I've also had the opportunity to do when I worked for the state, right? So our employees and others become elected officials, right? And serve in public office. That was something I thought uh, would be a great way for me to bring the skills that I have. I went to law school, I have a master's degree in public policy, and so I figured why not come back to the community that raised me and give back by using my brain and life experience to try and directly make lives better for the people who are growing up in the community that I grew up in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've already done a lot of that already in your tenure. I know I got here yesterday and I already started knocking on some doors for you.
Thank you.
And I've had some really good conversations. There's a lot of families in your district who are really, worried about costs. They're worried about medical bills, and just generally providing for their family and their community. So can you explain a little bit about what you've already done for Nevada and for Las Vegas, and also what you plan to do with the Democratic state Senate majority?
Sure. Let me first talk about the cost of housing. It has been on the rise. And, that leads to increased homelessness, right? When I grew up here in Las Vegas, I moved often because a lease would be ending, and that meant that the next lease, the rent was going to go up. And so we would move and try and find another place that was still within the range of cost that my mom could afford. That was in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and it's a problem that's been exacerbated today in 2024. And so I know that we brought several pieces of legislation in the 2021 session to directly address affordable housing. Unfortunately, all of those bills were vetoed by Governor Lombardo. And we've seen the very easily known consequences of that. Homelessness has gone up. The cost of housing just continues to rise. And so when we go back in the next legislative session, hopefully with more Democrats in the legislature, we're going to again continue to address these issues on behalf of Nevadans, even if our governor won't. And that's the case with prescription drugs as well. Since I've been in the legislature, we've had the opportunity of passing legislation that would ensure we have a database of pricing for drugs, right? That was the first step in ensuring that there was transparency in the process and bringing drug prices down naturally. We were around when the Patient Protection Commission was established here in the state of Nevada and has since been gutted by our current governor. So these are issues that the Democratic majority has been working on and will continue to address.
Yeah, it's it's amazing to see like the energy and also frustrating in just the GOP inaction. And I know I'm here in Nevada. I've been driving across the Southwest in a lot of swing districts and swing states, and Nevada is one of those states that has something interesting all up and down the ballot. So can you explain a little bit about why the state Senate is important and why voting down ballot beyond just the presidential ticket is really important in Nevada, but also across the country?
Yeah, the presidential election it's exciting, it's huge, it takes up a lot of oxygen and space. And don't get me wrong, there will be vast differences in our future if we elect Donald Trump and we don't elect Kamala Harris. That is something that we need to do and really will affect the future of our democracy. But those down ballot races, those are the ones that touch people in some of the most direct ways, especially when you see some stalemate at Congress. It's the states where rights are being protected or being taken away. Book bans, those are our state level bans. Abortion bans, those are state level laws, right? And so we've got to make sure that if you want your children to have a good education, a full education, if you want your children to grow up with just as many rights, and ideally more rights,
that would be great,
right, than you had, you've got to focus on those state level races. That's where a lot of that action is happening. If you're worried about your trash not being collected properly, you're worried about that pothole down the road, you're worried about that stop sign that needs to be put in your neighborhood to keep children safe. That's your local government. That's your county commission. That's your city council and mayor's races, right? And so we've really got to ensure that we are voting from the top to the bottom. Last thing I want to say on that, studies have shown the other side, Republicans, are voting from top to bottom, all the way down. And so we've got to make sure we are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I did just see that statistic too. So very important. I also want to talk about one constituency, which is younger generations. As of our recording, everyone in the Gen Z and millennial category, only about 5% of us have submitted our ballots. And I will admit that I have not submitted my ballot yet either. But
Me neither.
Yeah, okay. As long as it gets in by that deadline, November 5th.
It's on my kitchen counter. I will be voting early.
Me too. So the younger generations, there's a lot of both apathy and anger in just like, why does my vote even count? What is the purpose of me participating in a democracy when so many rights are being taken away, Roe v. Wade being one of the biggest examples? What is the message to younger folks now to turn out before November 5th?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, all of the people who have power in your life are voting. Mm-hmm. You may not see the reason to vote, but your landlord is voting, right? You may not see the reason to vote, but your boss is voting. The person signing your paychecks, they're going to vote. And that's because they understand the importance of it, right? And so if people want to feel empowered, voting is the way to do it. Voting is the great equalizer. Yes, your boss is voting, but guess what? His vote counts just as much as yours. And if you want to change anything, voting is the way. Voting is the lifeblood of our democracy. Our democracy does not exist if people don't vote. It is so crucial. It is the essence of our government. Participation is what makes it go, right? And so when we're disaffected, as odd as it may seem, the response has got to be more action, not less. Or change will happen, but not in the direction that we all want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could not agree more with that statement. That's all I have to say there. I want to go back to the economy because, again, that is the number one issue that I'm hearing from voters, that we're seeing in polls. What's the right closing message for Democrats on the economy, knowing that Trump and the Republicans are just kind of throwing anything and seeing what sticks, vilifying immigrants, distraction? They're really trying everything before November 5th.
I think it's got to have a couple of prongs to it, right? One is, and I think actually this is the most important one, acknowledgement. We hear you. I understand. I hear the economic angst, right? We've got to know, we've got to make sure people know that we understand and hear them, right? That's important. People need to feel heard, deserve to feel heard by their leaders. Let's make sure people understand that. Two, let's talk about some of the great things we've already done with regards to student debt, record high stock market numbers, reductions in inflation, higher than we'd still like, of course, but the numbers have been coming down. And then third, what we're going to continue to do. Kamala Harris has a great plan for $50,000 in tax exemptions for getting your small business started, $6,000 in tax credits for new families, right? Talk about those economic plans and what we're going to continue to do for people to make things better on the ground for them, things they can feel, things that are real. That's the way I think that we bring that economic message home. And like I said, when we get our message out, we've got a winning message. The economy does better under Democrats. People do better under Democratic administrations, right? So we've got to make sure that they know they're heard, that we've been doing great for them, and that that we've got plans to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the real people thing is the biggest piece there, and acknowledging the hurt. Going back to the comment about voter activation, when people feel heard, they feel more empowered to act. And one thing I do want to touch on is your identity and your intersectionalities, because right now, running for office is very challenging for anyone that is a person of color, a woman, a queer person, and you are all three of those things. And so I'm just curious, one, how are you supporting yourself through this, knowing that there are these reactionary forces happening, but also why is it important that you are here in the Nevada State Legislature?
Well, you know what? I think this is a opportunity to shout out some of the amazing organizations that are doing work across the country to ensure that progressives, people of color, women, LGBTQ identifying folks can run for office and win. The list is long. We met through a states project endeavor. They have been amazing in supporting me throughout this election. There's organizations like the States Project, the Next 50, Victory Fund. Here in the state, we've got organizations like Silver State Equality that help LGBTQ organizations. And so for those demographics that don't traditionally hold power, there are a bunch of organizations doing a lot of great work that's really making a difference. So if anybody's listening to this, please Google them, take a look, volunteer. It does make a difference for candidates like myself um, who don't have a big Rolodex of folks who can just max me out and, who can't necessarily self-fund their campaign. But that's because um, I'm a real person, right? Who wants to serve. And I think I have something to add, and a good portion of that is life experience, right? And I think we want folks with a diverse intersection of identities and experiences. And so my particular experience is that of someone who, I'm the first time homeowner in my family. And so I'm trying to be that transition, moving from one strata to the next, right? That's living, I think, quintessentially the American dream, right? And knowing what it's like to struggle, and again having to move often as rents go up. Knowing that, living that is super important when considering what type of policies are going to be imposed on the populace, right? I don't think we want only one perspective being considered when laws are being passed, right? And so I find that to be the most valuable um, uh, thing about holding multiple identities, that and representation, right? The idea that even as young students maybe come through and do tours of the Ledge building, just even seeing my picture on the wall, right? Just knowing that there are people who may look, act, identify similarly to them in halls of power. I hope at least will have some ripple effects that I likely will never know.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's so much of what activism is doing the thing and then not really knowing how you are impacting other people, but having faith that you are. So thank you so much for spending the time with me. I really appreciate it. And I am gonna go and start knocking on some doors for you.
Awesome. I'll be right behind you.
Awesome. Before I wrap up, I just have one more question, which is, how are you supporting yourself now until the election day?
Yeah. I play tennis.
Nice.
And so I have made sure that I still do that. I try and get out once a week at least. I haven't done it every week, but I try and get out and play tennis at least once a week. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and so I make sure I spend plenty of time with my 3-year-old and 12-year-old, just to keep myself grounded and refill my cup. Um, but you keep your mind on the work. I will get plenty of rest on November 6th and the 7th, and then we'll be back to work on the 8th.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Dallas Harris. I will link all of your website and everything. So definitely make sure that you go donate to Dallas Harris if you haven't, and go find some phone banks. Awesome. Thanks.